Hello and welcome to the Manpower Group Lab here at Vivatech. It's a bit of a party this morning. Climate change is an issue that no one can ignore anymore, as we can see by this current heat wave, and businesses have to take action as well. To reach net zero, organizations must address indirect greenhouse gas emissions. That starts with clear governance, but also metrics. Technology is changing the game to help streamline the data collection process and create more transparency and accuracy as well. The party is continuing. To learn more, I'm here with Ruth Harper, Chief Sustainability Officer at Manpower Group, and Alexandre Coulier, ESG Sales Manager at Onetrust. Hello to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Ruth, let's start with you. Can you tell us, what are some of the trends that are driving the need for greater transparency when it comes to climate action?
Sure, yes. Thank you very much for having us. And yes, the party's got going already. The heat is on. And that is very true. As well as increasing temperatures, we're also beginning to see an increasing focus on the E of ESG, which is important. Investors are seeing climate risk as an investment risk for starters. That's really important. Organizations are beginning to bring their ESG strategy into their business strategy if they really want to make progress. We're seeing increasing regulation and requirements around disclosures as well, so we've got to get serious about this. Alex and I were just chatting around, we're both feeling the progress and the shift from just financial reporting to also the non-financial reporting, and that finance teams especially are beginning to take this as seriously as they've taken financial reporting for so long. So the need for our definitions and our data capture to be precise is super important. And then just overall, look, we're here today, we're showing off our ESG strategy. It is wrapped right into our business strategy. Our working to easy for me to say, our working to change the world plan is related directly to our business strategy, which is how we can show what our brands, Manpower, Experis, Talent Solutions are doing as part of our commitment to change the world.
So then what does this mean from everyone on the chain, from consumer to employees?
People are voting with their feet, and if you haven't heard it already here, if you didn't hear it at Davos, if you haven't read it in the newspapers, there is so much talk about talent shortage, highest in 15, 16, 17 years. The Great Resignation is in nearly every headline in every media. We see it more as a great reshuffle. People are choosing to work for different organizations that better reflect their values and better reflect their own personal purposes. And organizations have got to include ESG in their own employee value proposition because it matters to individuals. That's what we're seeing playing out.
And I mean, you talked a little bit about this, but what does this mean specifically for Manpower Group? Why does it matter so much?
If we're being super transparent, as we say we need to be in the world of ESG, I think even just a few years ago, we felt, hey, we're a professional services organization. We're not utilities, we're not energy. How much impact can we really make? And now we know, right? We are professional services. We've got 30,000 employees, the majority of whom care about this issue because we've asked them, because employee engagement is important. But we put 2 million people into work every year too. So the impact that they have, the view that they have of us as an organization is really important. And now, we're committed as well to engaging our much wider supply chain because we know the impact that we make. And it's largely, we've been reporting on our Scope 1 and our Scope 2, our direct and indirect impact on the environment for well over 10 years. This is not a new fad, but the attention around Scope 3, the indirect stuff, the stuff in our supply chain, and for us, when I say proudly that we put 2 million people into meaningful, sustainable work every year around the world, that has a negative impact on the environment. Their commute to work primarily is our biggest part of our Scope 3, so we need to measure it, we need to understand it, and then we can begin to influence behaviors and begin to kind of change a culture to enable people to be part of reducing their emissions too.
So we've talked about measuring data, collecting data. Now we need to go towards data action. So Alexandre Coulier, first, can you tell us a little bit about Onetrust?
Just to give some explanation, first of all, what is Onetrust? We are a company which puts really transparency at the core of our values. We are a software company, and our idea is really to enable transparency through the various solutions that we are providing, and we are very proud to be a partner of Manpower. And this transparency to us is a prerequisite for something which is key to our value, which is trust. Because without any transparency, you can't get trust. Trust is just an outcome. And trust for us is really kind of a new goal. This is how you can engage all your stakeholders, because as Ruth said, I think that ESG must really be seen as something truly transversal and holistic. Today we talk about climate, we talk about climate action and data, but what would be your climate action if your governance is not to be believed? What would be your climate action if your people engagement would not be believed by your employees? And I think this is key. So what we see among customers today is really, as we discussed a bit earlier, is really we're kind of a juncture. We are really going towards sophistication. And a sophistication which is impacting, I would say, every stakeholders. Consumers, they want to know a lot more. Employees, a lot more knowledgeable. Regulators, which are putting more pressure. And companies, which are now getting access to more solution in order to get more insight from the data they get. So I would say that transparency and sophistication really goes hand in hand. And this is exactly where we stand as a software solution provider. Because on top of streamlining, automating the processes, I think it's always very important to remember that you have experts behind the scene. Climate, because we are talking about climate today, and carbon emission might be complex topic. You have international accounting standards, you have emission factors that you have to take into account, which are very different. And the idea is really to make those things very simple to be used. Because if you do not engage people through simplicity, easiness of use, it will be very difficult, I would say, to have a true impact that you can measure. So the sophistication, I would say, is really core as a trend that we have been seen developing. Would it be in the data collection? And data collection, data, as I said, ESG data are so holistic through all teams, all departments, all countries with different systems. You have to centralize all those data in the most transparent way. So that's one part of the collection. But after that, exactly as you said, you have to go to data action.
Yes,
and this is exactly where we are now. People want to see those data being collected, being put into action. So insights and analytics you can get from those data are key. But the first step is obviously to have the most granular, transparent, and precise data. And this is where we are.
All right, and so Ruth, let's go beyond the numbers for a minute. What else is needed to drive effective ESG and also a climate action strategy?
Yeah, and I'll just build on what Alex says, because if we look back just a few years, we've seen increasing attention around climate. We've seen more pledges than we know what to do with. And I think what we now really need to focus on is the precision of the data, which allows a very clear action plan to be able to make progress much more than pledges. And that data collection, the precision, the shift away from keeping your data in an Excel spreadsheet that's bigger than you like to email to anybody, that precision is really important because it identifies your key levers of activity. And for us, our key levers, which I think are probably going to pop up on the screen, they're pretty clear for us, and that makes it much easier then to have an action plan. What are we going to achieve what do we need to achieve to be net zero by 2045? Okay, this is really clear. What are we going to do by 2030 to be able to make that progress? And if there are targets for 2030, then what do we need to do this year, next year? And we've got 5 clear levers because of the data that we've collected, because we submitted all of our data and analysis and insights and all of that great stuff that we've gathered from a 50-strong planet community within Manpower Group and across our key markets. So we know what we need to get done, and that's how we get validated by the Science Based Targets initiative to say, hey, this is more than a pledge. This is how we are going to make progress year on year. And then we can say to our people, We have the priorities, we know the levers we need to pull, our people are a key part of it, we need you to help measure it and get it done, and then we can partner more widely with our clients as well. We've got hundreds of thousands of clients around the world who are trying to achieve the same thing. So the partner, the people, the priorities is key for us. And that's why I get super excited when I see, when we host our space at Viva, and we can fill all of these HR challenged startups with activity, technology that is related to changing the world, addressing climate action, and so on. So, another plug actually to have a look around, because there are great solutions, including Alex's, but some really great startups too that are talking about how they're going to help organizations actually pull their own levers, if you like.
Right. And Alexandre, do you have anything to add to that on this climate action strategy?
I think Ruth is spot on. It's a true ecosystem that you have to build.
Can I record that Ruth is spot on as my ringtone, and I'll play it at home the whole time?
You can, at least for that answer. No, I think it's really true. This ecosystem idea is really the right things to put in place. Because as we said, when we talk about engagement, when we talk about sophistication, it's just to say we have to focus on corporates, you have to focus on employees, you have to focus on your supply chain or your consumer. The same internally, you don't have, it don't not have to be a focus of the maybe sustainability team. It has to be part of the HR, it has to be part of the accounting, it has to be part, obviously, of the top management. So this is all that ecosystem which need to be built. Because without that ecosystem, you can't truly have an impact. We said it, we are at a juncture when things are sophisticating. You talked about indirect emission. Indirect emission are most of the time the most important volume-wise, and they are the most complicated to capture. And they are the one which will make the difference in the end, because they are part of the supply chain, and you have to go and gather the data, make sure they are transparent, because if you want people to be engaged, for your action to have a true and effective impact, this is a must. And I think this ecosystem story is definitely where we have to go, and this is exactly what Vivatech is. This is an ecosystem.
Exactly. And I mean, do you have any more examples of how you're doing this at Manpower Group?
How long have we got?
How many examples do you have, Ruth?
Yeah, I do. And I mean, we're at different stages, of all of these. But, I can't reinforce enough the importance and the enthusiasm of our teams. This is not a global ESG initiative. This has to be owned by the business, and that's where we're all, having identified our key levers around, what are we doing to electrify our fleet? What are we doing around our renewables, and shifting our branch and our headquarter and our office space to renewable energy? What are we doing around our business travel? And what are we doing around, the wider supply chain and the purchase of our goods and services, as well then as all of the commuting of our 30,000 employees, 2 million associates. So there are kind of 5 key levers, and we have all kinds of projects and work streams and mechanisms to be driving that forward at different paces. We've got in the Netherlands, we're making great progress. By 2025, we'll be 99% electric vehicles of our fleet. Super excited about that. We're changing the way that we use vehicles and fleets in Germany to subscription models, so that they're kind of on demand and they're not sitting on your driveway, or that you're using them in a most responsible way to change behaviors. So some great activity going on in Europe, and it would be remiss if I didn't give a plug to BlaBlaCar, a French organization that just a few years ago was a startup here on our lab that is now 2 million users, that is a carpooling app that is not just doing great stuff for the environment by carpooling and sharing transport, but is also addressing the S of ESG, because it's helping people from more disadvantaged areas, people who might not be able to get to work as easily, people who have to rely on public transport otherwise, to actually get to work and do meaningful, sustainable employment. So lots and lots of examples. And then, some of the less sexy stuff around, we are shifting. It's hard. We're shifting our premises to be more renewable, and if it's not renewable, it's nuclear, so that we're moving away from the fossil fuels too. So we have that showing up across our footprint, and the excitement that we're driving and the ownership of this that we're driving is hugely energizing.
I didn't even have to cut you off.
No.
I'm sure there are more. Alexandre, do you have any concrete examples of what you're doing on your end?
Yeah, for sure. And it's back to the holistic idea of ESG, the inclusive nature of ESG, and the fact that everybody must be part of that. There is no single department to be assigned to all the efforts and strategies you're going to do. So as a company, we are a software company, so with a deep ESG DNA. So we have been committing on our side regarding SBTi target. We have also part of UN Global Compact Initiative for the Sustainable Development Goals, which I think is really true. But I would say the main impact we have and where we really have a purpose to us is really with the customers we have. Because ESG is a journey. I always say to the customer, do not feed the first result you're going to have. What is really key is where you will end. And this is how you will be valued and cherished by your employees and all the stakeholders. And for example, today on the carbon side, we have some hundreds of customers using our solution. We are helping them to calculate their footprint, to put some reduction initiatives, and most of all, to engage with their employees and stakeholders. Because once again, employees must adhere to the project. We are talking about people's business, today talent shortage, but also the purpose that people are trying to find in their job. It's very important for you to have climate commitment, social commitment, and this is where we have been adding value to the customers of Onetrust today.
Great, well, some good things happening for sure. Thank you so much, Ruth Harper and Alexandre Coulier, and thank you for joining us here at the Manpower Group Lab.
Thanks,
Colette.
Thank you.